Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to go over religion and how it relates to the health of our democracy and how I believe that to be detrimental. First of all, let's start off with the basic premise that democracy is a way to alleviate abuses of authority by allowing people to have a say in their government. Basically, the purpose is to protect human rights, which I believe is based upon this basic moral code. You should do unto others as they would have you do unto them. Rather, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It shifts the focus from yourself to others, which of course is a higher moral standard. Right, so the barometer of human rights then becomes this: as long as an action or a thought does not infringe upon another, then it becomes permissible. And then after that, it's everything else that is up for a vote through informed constituency and through rational debate. And religion, in my opinion, actually destroys this. Why? Because it advocates appeals to authority and faith. Let's go over exactly what faith is. I went over this in the last video. It's essentially a belief without any evidence, because once evidence is presented, faith goes away. That's exactly why over the centuries religion has retreated to the point of only contending with the origin of life and the origin of the universe. That's because the other evidence for everything else is so incredibly strong. So that's not, I don't think that's a very hard point to understand. And because religions are a categorical view of the entire world, it makes this problem that much worse. It gets applied to the whole system, essentially, once you have a very religious population. And when you have a problem like faith and appeals to authority interacting with our entire political system, what happens is this. Because faith has no method for self-correction, and because it is completely based upon biases and prejudices, and we know this because it completely abandons reason, which is the method by which people kind of weed out their biases. It's the method that people think logically about things. It also tends to be very anti-science, which of course is just a method by which people take input from others while applying the scientific method. It's about the most humble and most accurate view, or way rather, of determining knowledge at the present time. Yet religion completely rejects it. And regards to appeals to authority, servility is not a good trait to have in a democracy. It allows people to remain in power who otherwise would not remain in power had the constituency voting actually been rational and informed, which of course is not a good thing. We want to have the best people in office that we can, and with religion reducing that and preventing that, I think it's a perfectly fair claim to make that religion is not very good for democracy. And here's a few examples of how religions tend to infringe upon rights. Let's just examine the drug war, for instance. Historically speaking, there was racist and religious zealots who actually pushed for this. Racism against Mexicans in regard to pot, blacks in regard to cocaine, opiates in regards to Asians, etc. It's all there in your history books, people. I suggest you go look that up. Also the religious zealots. Why? Because of a fundamental misunderstanding as to what a democracy is, and actually a misunderstanding as to what the Bible says, because it says render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and Jesus is a non-political figure. In fact, whenever politics is brought up, he shifts away from it. So people just don't know what Jesus says or what the Bible says. They're hypocritical not only in that regard, but illogical in the greater context. And the other example is slavery. What happened is this is kind of what happens with all adherents, but with slavery it was extra bad. They weren't allowed reading or learning, yet they were encouraged to be very, very religious. And what this meant is that people, in this case slaves, thought that certain books were holy, yet they couldn't read them, so they relied on others to tell them what it said, which of course led to a tyranny. This isn't actually all that different from what we see now, because people are willingly ignorant rather than having that ignorance forced upon them in the form of slavery. People in general in America only read at an 8th grade reading level. Most of them know hardly anything about the Bible or the religious texts of their specific religion. Statistically speaking, atheists actually know more than religious people in regards to religion. So that's a pretty big problem. Lastly, it also encourages collectivism, and people are supposed to vote as individuals. Of course, yeah, it's kind of like our electoral college, how certain people's votes technically should be going to a different candidate, because you have a winner-take-all system. That's kind of, I see that as a similar analogy as to what happens within a religion. If you have religious leaders of a specific religion encouraging something, a vast number of those adherents are going to follow that advice, even though it's not necessarily in their best interest. They're just doing it because of a religious leader. And of course, it's also this poor thinking gets applied to economic policy as well. Try talking with someone about politics, especially a radical, and it's essentially a faith-based claim, similar to communism actually, or really any radical political belief. And I want to bring this up because for people who people should know exactly what people are criticizing about religion in general, and it's a faith that appeals to authority, in my opinion, which of course is a more broad thing than just religion. You find this in communism, as I stated earlier, and other political beliefs, where let's use the Chinese takeover of communism as an example. First thing that was done, all the intellectuals were murdered. Then, of course, they instituted certain claims that were not to be questioned by the population. In North Korea, for instance, there's also a lot of evidence to suggest that that is a very religious country despite being communistic, and that's this. Kim Jong-il, it's rumored to have happened, that birds sang Korean once he was born, or that he hit 11 holes in one in golf, his first time ever. It's the same exact thing. Okay? Anyway, that's all for today. And that's why I think religion's bad for democracy and our political system. But just to be clear, I broaden that, but I criticize religion specifically because of how religious America is. Anyway, see y'all guys later.